since that one episode of Love Island where the contestants make out with each other while blindfolded have I been this disgusted while watching relationship drama unfold. Welcome back to my channel. My name is Emily, or La Movie Mija. I'm a part-time filmmaker, full-time movie lover, and this is my review of the highly anticipated horror film Together. Thank you so much for checking out my video. If you're new here, welcome. Hi. I am a team of one, writing, producing, and editing all of my own content that you see here without the use of any AI. So it means the world to me that you found my channel. One of my favorite parts about watching movies is the discussions that follow. Sharing with friends what you liked, what you didn't like, comparing analysis, and sharing some of the details you might have missed. That's why one of my goals with this page is to be one of the first places you go to after you watch a movie, so you always have a movie friend to dish with. And for this video, everything will be spoiler free because the movie is so fresh and I don't want to spoil a thing for you. And there's a lot to talk about with this one, so let's get into it. Years into the relationship, Tim and Millie find themselves at a crossroads when they move to the countryside, abandoning all that is familiar in their lives except each other. With tensions already flaring, a nightmarish encounter with a mysterious unnatural force threatens to corrupt their lives, their love, and their flesh. The film is written and directed by Michael Shanks, and it stars Alison Brie, Dave Franco, and Damon Harriman. Can I just say, I love horror films. I love the horror genre because there is just so much that you can dig into when you are talking about the things that scare us the most. And in the case of Together, what scares us the most sometimes is the idea of losing yourself in a relationship, the idea of codependency and enmeshment and identity collapse, and how that can just take over your whole life, not just your mind and your hobbies, your activities, your musical taste, but your physical self. This makes perfect sense why you would make a codependency movie and turn it into a body horror film. Because if there's something that I love about body horror films particularly, it's that they are so on the nose. Like if there's ever a time not to be subtle, it's in a body horror movie. You've learned that from things like The Thing, The Fly, The Substance, and now Together. Together is a movie that takes the metaphor of codependency and body horror and it kind of just slams you over the head with it over and over again. But you know what? I didn't care. I didn't care with how obvious the metaphor was because the way that they execute it is so well done. What makes this movie feel really fresh is just how well written these characters are. I personally think that Alison Brie and Dave Franco had such great chemistry in this role. I know that in real life they are married and I have been a fan of their work together before. I haven't seen them act together on the big screen like this, but I've seen Somebody I Used to Know, which is a film that stars Alison Brie and Dave Franco directed. There's also The Rental, which is a really fun horror thriller film. I highly recommend it. It stars Jeremy Allen White. Alison Brie is in the lead cast too, and it's also directed by Dave Franco. So I've seen them work together previously, but not in this capacity, and seeing them bring to life Tim and Millie was just so... I mean, let's say that there's going to be a lot of moments in this film that the body horror is going to make you want to crawl out of your skin. Equally so, the very petty squabbles that you see the couple get into and like the way that they attack one another and the way they kind of like pick at each other's like greatest insecurities will also make you want to crawl out of your skin. It is so cringeworthy, especially if you've ever had the experience of being in a long-term relationship and somebody just knows you so well and knows where to hit you where it hurts. Or if you've ever been the person at a table with another couple who is fighting, this movie is going to give you that like secondhand embarrassment that is just so hard to watch. But you're not going to want to look away because what they're able to do in these roles is nothing short of fascinating. There is a level of physicality that is demanded in horror films, specifically from its cast, and in this movie, no less. There is a lot of physical demand on Brie and Franco. I can tell that there was some use of prosthetics here and there, not because I could spot them with the naked eye, but just because I knew some of the things that they were doing in the film would be unsafe. The fact that they were able to so realistically portray those very grotesque and moments was commendable. Both characters, Tim and Millie, feel like real people. They feel like people that you would understand would be in love at some point. At the point that we meet them in the film, they have been going through some hardships. It's been a long time since they first got together and they're on the precipice of like, should we break up? Should we not? That is a very compelling entry point for their relationship. I've complained before that some movies just don't know where to start their story. This movie doesn't have that problem. What we learn about Tim in the very very beginning of this film and what he's been through, really get a strong sense of the commitment to give horror to the people who deserve it the least. Even though he's probably not the best boyfriend, he's not like a really strong partner when we first meet them, you can understand where he's coming from, and there's a great deal of empathy that I think the script allows for his character. But when I say this movie is predictable, I don't mean that as a detriment. I don't mean that as a knock against the movie. I think the movie is so smart in the way that it lays the groundwork for the plot that you naturally come to some of these conclusions in a way that makes sense. I will say that there are parts of the movie that you don't get every answer explained, and I'm okay with that. I like a movie that leaves a little bit to the imagination. Some of those might be challenging for people who like would prefer to know the full story about each and everything. And in this case, we don't get that because, again, the crux of the entire film relies on the relationship and your investment in this couple and if they're going to make it through this ordeal or not. I really like that the way the movie is shot, the darkness, it's not afraid to get too dark, but it does a lot of interesting things with light, either when they're by a fire or the way that the interiors are lit so that it's not too dark for you to see anything. So I did really like the balance of light and darkness in this movie, especially because we are given really simple setting. It's also really smart. I love when a directorial debut makes just such smart decisions. There's a really small cast, really limited locations, really simple premise. So overall, a very good way to come out swinging for your first feature. And the film is edited so well. It really flew by. And I think that also is a credit to the way that it lays the groundwork for you to arrive at those conclusions, because had we stayed any longer in any of the different scenes or the different times of the story, then I feel like we would have felt it drag a little bit because you can already tell where the movie is going. And again, that's not a bad thing. I feel like this movie knows what it is and it has a lot of control. There seems like there's a lot of mastery in what they're going for. And by the time you arrive to the conclusion, it does feel a little quick, but I really didn't mind that. I really liked how everything kind of escalates together. And once you know where it's going, it doesn't give you enough time to like catch up and fully think about what's about to happen. And it still leaves a lot of room to surprise you. The other great thing about this film is how humorous it is. Every relationship has their own shorthand, their own sense of humor. And I like that this movie wasn't afraid to show that, even though this is very much a horror film. We still get a lot of quippy moments, a lot of very quotable moments, and really silly moments that even are sometimes intertwined with some of the more horrific jumpy scenes. And it has this really odd physical effect on you. If you're going with a partner like I did, like trying to grab their hand, but you're also like, get away from me because I do not want you to touch me right now, but also how funny is this? It had a really fun effect on me, and I really can't wait to see more people go with like friends or loved ones or on a date night. Like this is going to be such a fun date night movie. I found the horror to be genuinely terrifying. There are some very horrific visuals that we get. Definitely sticks with you long after you leave the theater. The cinematography is also gorgeous. So I think with how beautiful this movie looks and the colors that they choose, contrast against like the green wooded area that most of this movie takes place in, along with the humor and the lightheartedness of the couple that we are investing our time in, makes this movie highly rewatchable. Unlike other horror movies, like Bring Her Back is a movie that I really loved. I don't know if I would want to go watch that movie and like have things to do later that day. Like that would have to be a movie that I just have to sit and cry and reflect on after watching it. Whereas Together is like a movie I feel like is going to have mass appeal because as grotesque and gruesome as this movie gets, like it's not afraid to go there. I did wish it went a little further even, but that's just me. I do watch a lot of horror films, so maybe that's not everybody's taste. But I do think that this movie will have mass appeal because it does have a good amount of graphic horror, but it also has a lot of levity and heart and is overall a pretty fun watch. Overall, I found the movie to be very compelling in the relationship drama and the body horror elements of the film. I do think that there are some bumps in the road as far as predictability, but again, I can't knock the movie for that because this movie isn't trying to surprise you. I think it's really trying to tell you a compelling story about codependency, about relationships, and it has a very clear and distinct point of view about what those things mean in this world, and I think it delivers it really well. And because this movie is so refreshing with the humor and the grotesque elements, it makes it so highly rewatchable. And on the Movie Mija meter, I gave this a 4 out of 5 stars. But let me know, what did you think about Together? Did you take a date out to go see it? Did you ride solo? And would this put you off of dating forever? Let me know in the comments below. All right, that is all for now. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next time. Bye.